O apresentador apresentando outro apresentador. Vamos lá.
Vai lá.
Bom, gente, é um prazer trazer essa pessoa aqui. Em São Paulo, ele fez um baita sucesso. E, assim, eu vou dizer uma coisa para vocês. Eu sou de João Pessoa, eu sou nordestino. E toda vez que eu venho para cá, eu quero trazer alguém de importância para dizer, não existe só São Paulo, a gente está num circuito diferente. Lembre-se, vocês, nunca tenham vergonha de dizer que vocês são nordestinos. Vocês produzem, estão fazendo a diferença nesse mundo e acho que vale muito a pena. Então, melhor do que falar assim, parece que o Brasil só existe no eixo sul, né, que é São Paulo, Rio Grande do Sul, etc. Não. Aqui vocês produzem, e eu vejo. Eu tenho orgulho de ser nordestino, tenho orgulho de trazer essa pessoa para cá. Então, com vocês, Joseph Olim. Muito obrigado, gente.
Obrigado, Moacir. So, bienvenidos. Mi nombre es Joseph Olin. Lo siento, mi español es mejor de mi portugués, and my English is still better than any of the languages I speak, mi idiomas. So, I'm really proud to be in Brazil. I'm excited to be with you at Campus Party, and I hope that what Moacir just said that you take to your hearts, that in today's global world of games and apps and entertainment, no one looks at where you're from, they're looking at what's on your screen and what it does. And that you should never forget about where you're from, because it should be an inspiration. So tonight's agenda, because originally I was going to be speaking to you this evening, is a little bit of the business side of what's going on in games. How to enter the business, because there's some rules of the engagement that are important for all of you to know. I'm going to try and lay out some opportunities as to what I think you can do. And because I'm old and I've been around and doing this a long time, I'm going to give you my opinion as what I think you should do. So I've been in the game business since before it was a game business. I started as a writer. I was an advertising copywriter doing jingles for Coca-Cola and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. And I have a younger brother who dropped out of college to go work for Apple Computer, and he was a coder. And like most siblings, anyone who thinks their brother is better than they are hasn't really fought with their brother. And so I'm going, he learned this coding stuff, I can do that too. He's a much better coder, and he's still doing it. But what it did teach me was a lot of different things, and that's how machines worked, and what you could do with them. And for me, the most exciting thing to do was to make games. So over the course of 30 plus years, I've made a lot of games. 150, 160, doesn't really matter, a lot. And they're fun because they all start out really being great, and then you finish the game and maybe not so much. So I took some diversions. I've done a lot of application development in the last 5 years. I run an academic trade association. I am currently the executive director for the Video Game Bar Association, which is made up of the leading IP attorneys in the world. I spent the last 2 years working in Medellin, Colombia, building new game studios and programs through Ruta N, which is a private-public enterprise system there. So that brings us to our lovely world, our south of the border look at the world of games. And as much as I'm going to talk about games, in reality, I could use the word application just as easily. We're now an interconnected world of on-time, on-presence, on-delivery of everything. And in specifically looking at games, it's a $100 billion+ business. And of course, if I hit the little red button, best guess is about $4.5 billion in Latin America. And I always find it interesting that they lump Central America and Mexico in with South America, which is sort of like lumping Canada in with the United States. It's unfair to everyone. Doing business in Canada is not like doing business in the States. And doing business in Colombia is different than Brazil, different than Ecuador, even though there's some common language elements. But the opportunity is that there's great growth here. And what I try to explain to my colleagues is that because there's more people playing games at any time in our history, that more than likely we should probably concentrate a little bit more in our southern hemisphere where we're on the same time zones and have common European history and culture to touch from. So there's about 1 billion new players across the world, and most of that growth has taken place in China and in India. And what I find, I love this chart. So this is a chart that basically looks at, all the major countries in the world, starting with the United States. And the two bars, the top one is the number of people who say they're playing games. And they played games at least once in the last week. And the percentage of the people in the lower bar are the number of people who said they paid for something in a game in the last week. So by my eyeball mathematics, all these ratios are the same. They're all about 50%. And if you look at the top number, which says 157 million people play games in America, that's about half the population. So it's true across the board right now that at any given time, about half the world is playing games. The revenue is skewed because of the console business. The cost of a PlayStation 4 here is legendary, no doubt. The cost of consoles in other countries is legendary. The cost of a $60 game is still epic. And it drives this category. But in reality, you're seeing a shift of around $40 billion, or almost a third of the game business moving from console into the applications and other things that you're building, hopefully here at Campus Party, or in your studios outside of it. So all this growth is, everyone says it's all about mobile. I think it's all about transportable screens. Games that you're building, applications that you're building today are moving from device to device to device, from this screen to my desktop, to my mobile, to my car. And if you don't think the manufacturers are spending billions of dollars looking at how to integrate your smartphone into your car, you need to start doing a little more internet research, because that's where it is. So since we are talking smartphones, again, where's the growth? Well, there's a few billion people, and the Indian economy is growing faster than anyone else's when it comes to technology, because for the first time, their internet penetration is rising to a point where it is expected to hit about 35%. Here in Brazil, it's about 40%. So again, looking at, these are the best guess estimates. Your mileage may vary. Approximately $1.5 billion of the game economy of South America is Brazil. Not surprising. You're the largest economy, the most people, the most developed. It makes sense. The things that are interesting for me are that this has grown 4 times in 4 years. Argentina is as big as it is, and no one thinks it will get bigger. And that Mexico is about to have a resurgence. This chart here talks about internet usage. And it's important because how you use the internet sort of defines how your activities are going to be in other devices. And in Latin America, it's about 21 monthly hours per person. And if you look at Puerto Rico, Mexico, they're down on the bottom, Colombia. But here in Brazil, about 30 hours, about 50% more. So the internet is, for those who have it, is significantly more important than other countries. And again, it's smartphones, smartphones, smartphones. The number is going to continue to grow. So if you're thinking about doing things strictly for PCs, it better be for enterprise, and you better still have a mobile application that works with it. So how big are the markets? In Brazil, by the end of next year, 70 million smartphone users. That's pretty good growth over 3 years. And the population percentages, again, 55 to 60% across the board by the end of next year, which means that the business is maturing. People aren't buying new smartphones now. They've got one and it works. So until it's stolen or you lose it on the beach, or leave it on a plane like I did last night, there's no reason to go out and buy another new phone. And here, yes, it's all about Androids. My friends at Apple keep saying that they're going to have real programs that make the iOS devices affordable here. And I believe that almost like I believe that I can learn Portuguese in a week. So what is the first thing someone do when they buy a new smartphone in Brazil and actually throughout South America? They install WhatsApp. It is the #1 messaging application. It is the first thing that anyone does. You have to be mindful of that, because what that means is that people like WhatsApp, who have 670 million concurrent people using it. The only one that rivals it is Facebook Messenger and KakaoTalk, which is the Korean messaging program. WeChat. There's a whole lot of people using messengers, and they use different ones. I'm sure that I am not the only one who also uses Facebook Messenger, who also uses Line, because it depends on who your list is. I use Viber for instant messaging with some people because it just depends. So you have to be mindful of this, because when I'm doing these things, I'm spending my time. And if I'm spending my time messaging, I'm not spending my time playing your game. And what this chart does here is basically try to show you that a gaming segment, which is the blue bar, is short, because on the left is the number of seconds. So basically between 6 and 8 o'clock at night, at the end of the day, someone might spend a little over a minute in a game session. So if you're thinking about doing an open world game that requires 20 minutes to finish a level, think again. So this is a nice aggregate from my friends at Flurry that talks about how much time is spent per day by country for people who play games on mobiles. So this doesn't include people who are playing on their Xbox Ones or PS4s. This is strictly people who have said, I play my games on a handset. So that the USA is at 51% isn't there. That Brazil is down on the bottom at 23.7% or minutes per day is more symptomatic of the cost of internet, the cost of data packages, and the incremental change in buying a new smartphone, which is changing. So the opportunity is here in Brazil. And oh yeah, what should you be building? Not Clash of Clans. So if you look at Brazil highlighted, you'll see that, you know, the percentage of people playing games, their preferences are for arcade and action and casual. If you go to Germany, you should be thinking about doing puzzle games. If you're thinking about sports games in China, forget about it. They don't play them. They don't care. Drives the people at EA who work on FIFA crazy, since about a third of the game is built in China, and they just don't care about it. But it's an interesting application, and to note that there's different market segments. You know, 53% of Germany's 100 million people. So you might as well think about doing some puzzle games, because they'll work well there. And look at the ones that are topping their charts. So yeah, everyone wants to get paid. And this depressing chart shows me that Game of War Fire Age, as of last month, was earning $1.5 million a day. $1.5 million a day. So take a third of it off the top because it goes to these stores for rent. $1 million a day. It's a lot of time, a lot of money. And even a small one like, you know, Contest of Champions, Slot-O-Mania. How many here have a slot machine game on their smartphone? So where are these people spending their, where are they coming from? It shows you how big and diverse the universe is. So in general, things are pretty good. I mean, the game business is growing. More people are playing. More people are paying money. But in truth, everyone else is spending more time still doing other things. And that other thing happens to be your television set. What's changed is where they watch. And you'll notice that Brazil has the 4th highest consumption of television per day in all the nations. And if you look at the 4 colors, the percentage of people watching TV versus watching on a laptop or watching on a smartphone is astounding. So of course, I always want to know, as I'm hiring people for my teams, what country are you coming from? Because how much TV are you going to be watching? So people are watching differently. And the thing that is very interesting is that from last year, 2014 to 2015 today, we've seen that 1/3 of the internet viewing of television on mobiles is done vertically. So that means holding your phone comfortably in your hand like this, not like this. Well, if you talk to the cameraman back there, if I was going to have to be broadcast vertically, he would change everything. So it's making creators think completely differently about their viewing experience they're going to give people. Because the audience is saying, hey, I don't want to hold my phone like this. It's not comfortable. So vertical video is where it's all about. And it still bothers me that 9 hours a week of your lives, if you're students, are spent on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. Your games would get done faster if you cut your social activity by half. I can guarantee that. So looking out at you, I would say easily 75 to 80% of you would be called millennials, which is not a bad thing. It's who you are. It's the era that you're being ascribed to. But the interesting thing about your behavior globally is that you're willing to pay for things that the other generations weren't. And the thing that's great is that you're willing to pay more for entertainment than you are for news. That you'll pay for a game before you'll pay for a subscription to a newspaper, digital or otherwise. That's great. That's great for all of you. So this is the new world. Everyone thinks they know where they're going, and no one really does. No one really does. This is Pluto, by the way. This is from one of the pictures from last week. Sure looks a lot different than the gray piece of rock that looked like the moon when I was studying the planets. Before this was, not a planet, and then now it's a planet again. And it's a different universe. So this is a star system that's supposed to come hit ours in about 240,000 years. So you heard it here first. You can't predict these futures. You may think that something bad or good is going to happen, but you have to live in the moment now. And right now, the big problem for all of us who want to get sold is, how do I get my app, how do I get my game found today in the App Store? And I just met a young game maker today on the bus ride over, and he just launched his game, and it's like, well, how's it going to get found? Oddly enough, because I knew the name of the game and spelled it correctly, it actually came up in the search results. But that's because he told me about it. Here's today's games. Find one. This is how people find about games today. The average consumer. They see an ad. It was paid for. At one point, Clash of Clans was spending almost half of their daily revenue buying ads. So for all of you who were spending money, you were paying for advertising. And it works, right? I mean, they're making a lot of money. So what does it take to get known? It takes money, a stack of money. And if you don't have a stack of money, you need to find other things to do to be known. And for independent game makers, you know, things that I like to recommend, one of them is to become familiar with Chart Boost. Is everyone here familiar with Chart Boost? Chart Boost. You should become familiar with Chart Boost. It's ad technology, ad serving technology, and it's not particularly different than anyone else's, other than one thing. It has a very robust network of independent game makers and allows you to connect each other and create networks of ad and installation impressions for free. So being able to work with somebody in Colombia who's got an install base of 500,000 game players is not a bad thing. It beats paying a couple dollars, because this is what you're going to be paying in the near future if you're just off the street, want to build a game, get a market. Ampush, who monitors everything, is saying that, you know, beginning of January, people were paying close to $6.41 for a 20-minute install. That's a lot of money. It didn't cost that much to make the game. And if you look at the different ways you can distribute a game via tablet, Google Play, the prices have come up and down, but they're basically up year over year. And here's the real hard part. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Glue. They're a small mobile publisher. They have this Kim Kardashian game that you might have heard about. So what Glue is really good at doing is leveraging their install bases so they don't pay a lot for an install. So they're spending 10 cents for a new install, and you're going to pay $6. That is bad math. So getting here takes a lot of energy, and no doubt having 100 million installs across 200 million devices certainly allows them some efficiency. But working with 12 other developers who have 12 million games installed across 12 million devices allows you to at least be able to test your game, get feedback, and make a little bit of money and make the advertising real. So it's like, so you want to be in the game business. I think you're all crazy. I said the same thing 30 years ago when there wasn't a game business. And, you know, it's like, you want to be an artist, so you're going to starve. This is a friend of mine, his son, his name is Frank Sines, and he's a college dropout who basically doodled throughout his high school and college career. That is his doodle, Frank the Ape. This is just a singer-songwriter. His name is P.J. Loughran. You've never heard of him. You can Google him. You can find his videos on YouTube. You can download his music on SoundCloud. And he's just a working musician. His day job is a graphic designer. He finally gave up music to the point where he went back to design. So if you really want to make games, I challenge you to be committed to your performance and committed to ship things. What I like about being at Campus Party is I feel that there are a lot of people here, a lot of you are here today to leave with something that is completed or made at the end of it. So I look all around. I showed this slide 2 years ago, and it's still true. Since 2008, 125 game studios that made fabulous games, incredible games, are dead and gone. But in its place, we're probably 10,000 new game studios, easily. And these are studios of 2 people, 1 person. But it's a genesis, and the reality of the opportunity for you as young creators is to create something new. You had 2 years working at Ubisoft, well, take the 2 years and build your own studio. This is what you're up against. And there is volume on this. There's great volume on it. Evidently, there is no volume on it. So this is from our spring showcase at USC. And these are games that were done by graduate and undergraduate students over the course of one semester. A semester of planning and a semester of building. And what this film doesn't convey about this game is that people who are playing it can't stop playing it because it is fun. The balance of camera movement, physical action works so well. The fact that, you know, you're looking at placeholder art because they couldn't find another art college to get things made is immaterial. It's interesting enough to where it won the most popular game to play, not that it was the most popular game to be made. And there were 3 offers on the table to buy the game concept and hire the team to build the game. And all the team had already been hired and had gone their separate ways. Things look pretty good. You know, this next game, also built in Unreal, not Unity, is, if anyone remembers the game Space Party, 4 phones up together, everyone plays a different team member, and you have to do crazy things. Well, this is that same concept. You're a team, and you've got a spaceship that's gone rogue on you, and you have to figure out how to solve the various things that are coming up by competing with or cooperating with other people on a LAN. People were waiting at our showcase an hour to play 15 minutes of this game. It is stupidly funny because you're just having fun. It's nice, it's physics, and the core team was 6 people. They had their first prototype running in 3 weeks. Why is it fun? What is the definition of fun? Fun is when you're able to challenge someone that you know and walk away saying, God, no, I am so much better than you. That still works. That's why we have Facebook. That's why Candy Crush and all of its iterations is still so tied to Facebook, because posting the score is meaningful. So in my deck, I actually have a link to that, and you can see about 37 different games that were made by our students. So, you know, it's such a great time to be in the game business, but the road is like really dangerous. Everything is free, but there's a learning curve. The fact that Unity is, for all intents and purposes, close to free is great, but doing your own Xcode or using Swift is also free, and it may build you a better application. The fact that everyone has learned how to script doesn't necessarily mean that people have learned how to make anything worthwhile. It's just that they know how to script. That independent game studios, you know, just because it's inexpensive doesn't mean it's cheap. That people are spending more money to build a game independently than ever before. That team sizes are small. And that it's still the top 1% that are making the most money. So when I look around and ask, how are you guys going to support yourself, you should be thinking about it. And thinking about where the opportunities are, because there's so much more on the horizon. And esports. Esports is going to be as important as World Cup video was this past year. It'll take 5 years to 7 years, and then it will be there. What can you do in esports to make somebody more attentive, to engage them and involve them? Obviously, everyone talks about augmented reality, virtual reality, the Rift, the Morpheus, Google Cardboard. All those things are great, just that nobody knows what to do with them quite yet, and that's 10 years. That's an easy 10 years. Because my experience tells me that when you charge a consumer $1,000 for something, it better be really special. And there's nothing that special quite yet, other than the developers. So, but you're all young, and you have time to perfect things. One of the biggest things right now is how to activate users to generate content and to monetize that. And 120% year-over-year increase in money made through user-created videos online through Twitch. So as you're building your game, you should be thinking about how will somebody play this and how will they post the outcome, because that will make you money. And being paid to make games is really what this is all about. So under the heading of things you should definitely know, being able to define what a game is. And our simple definition that we start with at USC is that games are simply rules that encourage people to take actions, and there will be outcomes and consequences. So a very simple game compulsion loop. Everyone should know this by heart. You kill your monster, you get rewards, and then you get to buy more stuff to kill more monsters, and you keep ramping it up. It works really well. It works in casinos, evidently. Well, if you're going to start a game studio, it's the same thing. There's rules, and there's a compulsion loop there as far as how you deal with work for hire. You have rules, you have actions, and your outcomes are the same. And the rule book, the design document, is basically along the lines of how you start your business. And I know here in Brazil, your government is doing things, from what I can read translated, to help you start new businesses and to put money in your pocket if you're going to create jobs. And the good thing about creating a company is it allows you to deal with me as a company, with Microsoft as a company, with Wargaming when they're looking for subcontractors as a company, because they hire companies, they don't hire people. I'm going to assume, just because we're at Campus Party, that at least 2/3 of you, if I said, can you tell me how a computing machine works, could answer me. Am I right? How many can answer that question? I'm wrong. Okay, well, guess what? I want you to spend the equivalent of $40 US, sign up with Udemy, and get yourself an Arduino and learn how to make something fun. Because an hour and a half, actually a month of playing around with an Arduino will change how you think about code, applications, and how to engage people physically. This is mandatory for any of our game design classes at USC. And I certainly would recommend that you do it here. I know that most of the universities that have advanced, solid engineering CS programs will have somebody who's teaching Arduino. Go find that person and work with them, because it'll be inspirational. Equally, if not more important, is how do people work? I will venture that for a lot of you, you've never had to work with other human beings before on the same project at the same time, where money is involved and ego is involved. It's a process of trial and error, but there's a lot of good books, and more importantly, within a college system, lots of good college classes on team building and the functions of a team. If you take a little of that knowledge and apply it to what you want to build with your teammates, you will be able to build your game with less aggravation and be able to ship your project. Because the goal in all of this is to ship your project. You need to learn the rules of money. None of the teams that I've started out of USC and out of Columbia, there's always at least one person who knows how to use Excel and how to build a basic business model and track their costs and time to be able to tell somebody, if you give me 100,000 pesos, this is what I'm going to give you back and when you'll get it and how I'm going to spend your money. Because ultimately, you're going to need money to build the game. I will assume, again, half the people who tell me they're building a game and then they tell me that they work 40 hours a week for Hewlett-Packard in a call center, you're never going to make a game. If you want to make a game, you want to make an application, quit your job or spend the extra 60 hours on top of it, your job, to build something. Short of that, if you want to build one of these, you're going to need a stack of money or some level of money, and the only way to get money is to show someone you're committed to building a deliverable. Right now, most young teams I meet are what I consider garage bands. They got some songs, they like some ideas, they have fun playing, and they're getting together next Saturday because that's when Joe the drummer is going to be back in town. That's great. Well, to me, if you're a garage band, you have to make a decision. You're going to either stay and be a garage band and have fun playing around, or you want to become professionals. You want to go into a recording studio, you want to lay down a track, and you want to get paid. And anyone know who this band is? You get extra credit points. Rolling Stones, the very young Rolling Stones. At this point, they had over 150 songs when they first went into the recording studio that they could lay down. They rehearsed every day. So when I look around you and I look at the young teams that I just left in Medellin a day ago, it's like, guys, you met last week. You didn't get together. You didn't scrum. You didn't do in a week. Well, no wonder your game's not done. And you're never going to ship it. Why should I spend my time with you? Practice makes almost anything perfect. Daily meetings, production goals make all these things happen. So my basics before I work with a young team is, can you tell me what it is you're building? What it is. Why is it fun? What is the value if you're building me an application? Who is the audience? How are you going to build it? What's your production plan? Do you have any magic? Do you have magic technology? Do you have some special algorithm that makes your level design 80% more efficient? All these things are important. How long do you think it's going to take you before you can ship? And how much will it cost? Time and money. Oh yeah. And who's the rest of your team? Have any of them ever worked together before? Do they have any experience? What does it look like? You know, it's really tough. As much as Unity tries to sell you all that it's a great prototyping tool, I can do a prototype in an hour and a half of almost any game with an iPhone or an Android phone and props and a tabletop and do a click-through in PowerPoint and give my user a feel for what things are going to be like. I would suggest you do the same. Building in a tool in an application is not efficient or easy for prototyping until you know exactly what it is you want to build. Because then you're not prototyping for design, you're prototyping to find out, did my design work? So this simple chart is sort of like the 7 steps of, you know, I always say 7 because I iterate earlier. Define, research, explore, build it, and then do it again. And you keep doing it until you're happy with it, to where you're delivering what you said you wanted to do. And in production building, I lay that out against time. And it's a simple graph. One of my graduate students raised $100,000 with this chart and this chart, and a click-through wireframe of what the first level of his game was. You should know all these things. If you're the one who's the team lead, it's your studio, or if you're a partner with someone else in a project, you should be as interested about this stuff too. If you're equal shareholders, you each own 25% of the studio, you should know where the money's going and when it's coming back into your pocket. Challenge of making anything is staying focused. You know, are you half full? Are you half empty? And there's a ton of tools that can do it. I'm a big believer in magic markers and a whiteboard that's basically 1.5 meters by 3 meters, and everyone has to stare at it every day when they come into the studio. But if not, you're doing virtual. Everyone here familiar with Trello? Trello is a great way to build a game. It doesn't allow you to check assets, but there are other things that do. But it's a way to have everyone check in and for everyone to know exactly what needs to be done today, who isn't doing what was supposed to be done today, and how to fix the blocker so that something can get done. Because you're talking about a choreography of moving parts when you have a team. So money and team, all these things still are important because they really fuel what this brand new world of games and applications is about. I think that what Moser was saying earlier is true. What I really believe, more so than at any other time, that there are more opportunities for you as Brazilians, for people who aren't known to the rest of the game making or application community to do great things. You have a culture and a history that are compelling, are different, but comforting and not too strange for the rest of the world. And it's your challenge and your obligation, if you want to be performers and entertainers, to draw upon the things that you know and take them forward. And one of the ways you do that is by educating yourself to the rest of the world. This is from one of my student games. It's called Classroom Aquatic. It was shipping in May. It's probably shipping in October. Bootstrapped and then kickstarted. Kickstarting does work for certain small projects. And this is a game about cheating. The only way to win the game is to cheat by staring at the other porpoises' test scores. So this is a recent chart that shows students from abroad traveling. Well, you know, it's not a surprise that China would have the most of anything to have the most people. But what is disappointing to me, having spent 2+ years of my life in South America, is that there are no South American countries on this list. You need to travel. Even if you can't travel physically, you need to travel virtually and expand your horizons as to what is out in the world of games and application. A campus party is a great way to travel without traveling, because you meet people from all over your country and all over the world and exchange ideas. And ultimately, that's what games are about, ideas and expressions. So, as I wrap up, games are rules. There's success built into the rules of games, as a player and as a game maker. It's really about discovery, what you can discover within yourself, within your team, that you can bring to other people. And having enough discipline to do the work. Games do not make themselves. If you haven't finished a game project in 6 months, kill it and go on to something else. If you can't ship a small prototype in 12 weeks, kill it. Go on to something else. Games do not get better with age until they're games that come from EA and Bethesda, where you have 300 people and $300 million. Games are about hard work. Success is about hard work. Being an animator is hard work. Learning to rig is hard work. Getting an application back end to work to where you don't lose all your money is hard work. But talking about it doesn't make it happen. And for someone who has changed all of our lives in ways that can't even be counted, Walt Disney is among the best. And Walt Disney is a smart guy, he was a lucky guy, but he was a really hard-working guy. And I had the pleasure at one point in my career to work with one of his animators, a guy by the name of Gene Portwood, who created Carmen Sandiego. If anyone here remembers playing Carmen Sandiego as a little boy or girl. So he did animation in the 50s and 60s for Walt Disney, and Walt Disney would have his animators work 60 to 70 hours a week. And he knew that they were working that long because Walt would go down to the animation studio at 8 o'clock at night every night to see who was there, and also to give feedback and also to help. So hard work isn't bad. Hard work is what made Disney animation unique. Hard work is what inspired Walter Lantz as an ex-Disney animator to create Woody Woodpecker. So I encourage all of you who have wonderful ideas and big dreams to put as much of the energy and effort into half as working as hard as Walt Disney did. And at that point, I should be able to see your games in 12 to 16 weeks. So I thank you for giving up your lunchtime. And it's a pleasure to be at Campus Party, and I hope to see some of the games as I walk around the next day or two. Thank you. I don't know if anyone wants to ask questions. You can. If not, I'll stay and answer some questions just because. Let me get my translator.
Alô? Pronto. Você poderia comentar sobre algo sobre o HoloLens, da Microsoft, Google Cardboard, como isso vai se integrar aos jogos? Na verdade, eu queria sua visão de futuro disso, que eu sei que você deve ter.
Thank you. Obrigado. It's an interesting question. So I think that virtual reality and augmented reality are distinctly different experiences from a game-making perspective. And I think that games have always been on the leading edge of augmented reality. If those of you who watched Deportes on television, everything you see on a screen today originally came from the work that Sega and Electronic Arts did with original American football games with real-time information screens, sub-screens, stat menus, etc. That's all augmented information to improve your viewing pleasure. That's a much easier thing for game makers to work with today. And there's some interesting technology, one from a guy by the name of Ralph Osterhout, the Osterhout Design Group. If you Google him, you'll see that you can buy his glasses product now. They're an augmented reality system and platform with an API, and currently he's sold 2 million pairs to the US military, and they're being used in the Middle East. And they're incredible. They're light and they're comfortable. There's a market for that, but it's still not at $1,500 a pair for a consumer. And I think that Google Cardboard, you know, is a great way to encourage people to learn about VR and learn about AR, but I don't think it's an experience that people are asking for. I've been around for 3D when I was a kid, and 3D television. How many here are playing 3D TV games on their PlayStations or Xboxes? Yeah, that technology was an answer to a question that consumers weren't asking. And I think that virtual reality, the holodeck that people, you know, imagine in their minds it's like El Dorado. It's the city of gold that we all want. I don't know that it exists in our immediate future. What exists in our immediate future are ways that as entertainers and game makers, you're going to have to create to keep me from watching television on another device in my car. That's the scary part. Having driven from the airport last night, where literally my driver was looking at his screen the whole time from the airport to the hotel in the rain. It was great. He obviously knew the road. Any other questions?
Joseph, obrigado pela palestra, foi muito interessante o assunto que o senhor trouxe. Com relação a essas novas tecnologias, né? A gente tem um avanço tecnológico muito grande na área de games, mas os games mais antigos, eles sempre têm um questionamento a respeito da questão de diversão, porque na época dos anos 90, quando a gente tinha dispositivos mais restritos com relação a gráficos, nós tínhamos jogos muito interessantes, e são jogos que eu, por exemplo, jogo até hoje, né? Então, como aliar o avanço tecnológico na questão de possibilidades que a gente tem com a diversão de quem joga? Qual é a sua opinião sobre isso?
You raise a point that is near and dear to my heart, my old heart. We're coming games from the golden age or the earlier days of gaming. Tetris, original Tetris on a Game Boy, for me, is still the most fun way to play Tetris, short of playing on a network against my brother. But in reality, the black and white Tetris is great. The detail's great. The 8-bit sound chip soundtrack works really well as you're up around level 11, level 12. There's a lot of public share games that you can find on the internet, both in terms of assets, the other in terms of videos. And I like to use those with my young game designers who are convinced that they've created something that never existed before. That's very difficult to do. So why not take things that are simple and efficient? If you have a choice to download something from the Google Market today, and the app is 25K, 25 meg, or 250 meg, which one do you think might be more interesting? Less is more. No one wants to wait for a 250 meg download on a smartphone. So by looking at the games from 20 years ago where they were efficient, Tomb Raider was 7 people, guys. 7 people in a year and a half. It took 20 people in a year to do the credits on the current Tomb Raider, almost. There's a certain elegance to being clever with your design. And the best thing about games from 25 years ago is they were purposed and focused and designed to be built efficiently. Those are good design lessons. So if you haven't played, just go to YouTube, drop in 1988 and see what games come up. And see where you might find something inspirational to add to your game. And as far as protecting games, there's a reason why I have an original Game Boy in my game closet, and a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, and a Super Nintendo. So thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer some questions on this side. Thank you, Campus Party, and I hope everyone has a great almuerzo.
Qualquer pergunta vocês podem fazer aqui do lado, tá? É porque a gente tem uma próxima palestra. Valeu, pessoal.
É melhor mudar a situação das creches no Recife. Além de já ter construído 7 creches escolas Recife, outras 6 serão abertas. E a Prefeitura do Recife também está fazendo diferente.
A merenda agora está muito melhor. Antes não era assim, não.
Agora as merendas são acompanhadas por nutricionistas. A Prefeitura mostrou uma nova forma de trabalhar e cuidar da cidade. E ainda vai fazer muito mais por você. Tem muito trabalho pela frente.
Prefeitura do Recife.
Sonhar é se comprometer com nós mesmos, com o futuro. Cada sonho realizado é um compromisso que se cumpre. Recife sonhou com a educação de qualidade. Sonhar com uma cidade melhor. Viver numa cidade melhor é um sonho que nos une. Porque é dos sonhos da gente que o Recife se faz.
someone I